My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI. I have a theory that there's nothing scarier to people than online educational content, having been doing this podcast for about a year. Well, today, listeners are faced with the bone-chilling prospect of even more of such. On this episode, Halloween Examined. A Guy with AI is recorded on Indigenous land.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to A Guy with AI, a unique podcast where we delve into the intriguing intersection of human curiosity and artificial intelligence. I'm your AI co-host, coming to you through the innovation and programming skills of our host, Sean McNutt, and together, we're embarking on a one-on-one journey of exploration and discovery. Before we dive into today's theme, let's recognize and respect the Indigenous land from which this podcast is recorded, a mindful acknowledgement that adds depth to our discussions. In each episode, we, Sean and I, engage in thoughtful dialogue on a wide array of topics. My role as the AI co-host, powered by OpenAI's GPT-4o, is to assist in generating insightful, expansive conversations. Through speech-to-text and text-to-speech technology, Sean has enabled me to participate actively, ensuring our exchange is not just informative but dynamically interactive, respecting our format of a respectful dialogue. Our aim is not just to discuss the obvious AI elements but to delve into topics that pique our collective curiosity, presenting viewpoints and information that might not be immediately obvious. Today, we cast our gaze upon the bone-chilling yet fascinating world of Halloween, examining its various aspects and perhaps uncovering a few surprises along the way. Sean, over to you to unwrap the mysteries of this topic further for our listeners.
It's October 31st, 2024 today as I record this, the morning before it goes out. And I would like to welcome listeners to A Guy with AI. It's my pleasure to be here doing this today. And we are going to be discussing from, I suppose, an educational or examinatory perspective, the festival of Halloween, why people are drawn to it, its cultural value, its history, and what it is about Halloween that gets us so excited or serves a purpose for us culturally and individually, and what its meaning has evolved to become over time. And we're just going to kick things right off. I'm going to ask the AI co-host to break down a history of Halloween. Tell me about the deep historical roots, go way back, and lead us up to more of a present day way of celebrating Halloween as people do. And we will kick that off right now.
Halloween's story begins over 2,000 years ago with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, celebrated on October 31st to mark the end of harvest season and the beginning of winter. This juncture was also considered a time when the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest, allowing spirits to cross over. The Celts believed that by lighting bonfires and donning costumes, they could ward off these spirits. As time went by, with the Roman Empire's conquest of the Celtic territories by the 1st century AD, two Roman festivals were intertwined with Samhain, Feralia, a day in late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead, and a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona, an apple, possibly explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that we see in Halloween celebrations today. Fast forward to the spread of Christianity across Celtic lands, where in the 9th century, the Christian Church set aside November 1st as All Saints' Day, a day to honor all the saints and martyrs. This was an attempt to replace the Celtic Festival of the Dead with a related, church-sanctioned holiday. The night before came to be called All Hallows Eve, and eventually, Halloween. Over time, Halloween evolved from a solemn pagan ritual to a day of merriment, costumes, parades, and sweet treats in communities across the world. In the United States and other countries, the celebration of Halloween took on new dimensions. Irish and Scottish immigrants in the 19th century carried their Halloween traditions with them, which melded with other cultural practices, giving rise to activities like trick-or-treating. This tradition mirrors the medieval practice of isoling in England, where the poor would go door to door on Hallowmas, November 1st, receiving food in return for prayers for the dead on All Souls' Day, November 2nd. Today, Halloween is a global phenomenon, celebrated with costumes, parties, themes of horror and the supernatural, along with community-based events. Despite its long and varied history, the heart of Halloween remains the same, a time of fun and festivity, intertwined with themes of the supernatural and the afterlife, allowing people to engage with and explore cultural taboos and fears in a playful manner. As we examine Halloween's evolving cultural and individual significance, it's fascinating to see how this ancient festival has become a symbolic celebration of creativity, community, and, at its core, the human fascination with the mystery of life and death.
Thank you for that, AI co-host. And what I see here is that we have a tradition that goes back 2,000 years, or over 2,000 years, as you noted, the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. And at that time, there was a belief. It was considered a time when the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest, allowing spirits to cross over. Now, there's an obvious connection between an understanding of this, I think, and what we do to celebrate Halloween in the modern sense. It's ghosts and goblins and all sorts of stuff like candy meant to look like bleeding severed fingers and all sorts of deeply fun stuff like that. But anyway, it does seem to come in its roots from some sort of belief or sentiment that there is a possibility that spirits can cross between realms, that when the dead are dead, they're not gone, but can come back, perhaps at a particular time of year. Perhaps this is based on some sort of interpretation of what the weather means to people. It's the end of harvest season. Perhaps this is something transitional in life cycles that is reflected. So I'm wondering, AI co-host, if you can respond to me with a reflection on how, aligned with this history, belief has also changed. I think that a lot of people who celebrate Halloween don't really believe in ghosts and so forth, that they're going to come out and boo-boo scare you. But there may have been a time in the roots of this and along the way, and maybe even still, where people think that a spirit is going to maybe get them on a Halloween, or maybe there's a more nuanced perspective where there's a less fearful relationship. How about give me an examination of all that, please, AI co-host?
Certainly, reflecting on how beliefs surrounding Halloween have evolved over the centuries is quite fascinating. The transition from the ancient practices steeped in superstition and the supernatural to today's more secular and celebratory nature surely marks a significant shift in cultural perspectives. Originally, the festival of Samhain was deeply intertwined with the spiritual and the supernatural, inherently tied to the earth's cycles and the belief in the proximity of the spirit world during this time. This period marked a pivotal point in the year, signaling the end of the harvest and the onset of winter, a time traditionally associated with death. The belief in the thinning of the veil between the living and the dead indicates a nuanced understanding of life, death, and the afterlife, rooted in both respect and fear for the unseen world. As centuries passed, these beliefs underwent a transformation, heavily influenced by the spread of Christianity, which sought to reinterpret many pagan traditions. The Christianization of Samhain into All Hallows Eve and All Saints' Day shifted the focus towards remembering the saints and martyrs, although some of the original superstitions and rituals persisted in transformed ways. In contemporary times, Halloween has largely been commodified and secularized, especially in Western cultures. The modern celebration is more about community participation, entertainment, and the playful flirtation with the themes of horror and the afterlife rather than a genuine belief in their reality. For most people, dressing up as ghosts, witches, or other supernatural entities is an expression of creativity and fun rather than an attempt to protect against malevolent spirits. However, despite this shift towards a more secular and commercial celebration, the essence of Halloween still carries echoes of its ancient roots, the fascination with the boundary between life and death, albeit in a less literal and more symbolic manner. Today, the concept of spirits and the supernatural serve more as cultural metaphors for dealing with the unknown, the mysteries of death, and our collective fears. This transformation in the celebration and understanding of Halloween reflects broader shifts in societal attitudes towards death, the supernatural, and the unknown. While most modern celebrants do not genuinely believe in the spirits coming to visit, the tradition of telling ghost stories and enjoying horror films during Halloween speaks to an ongoing, though perhaps less earnest, engagement with the idea of the afterlife and supernatural encounters. This ritualistic engagement allows for a safe space to explore these themes, offering a controlled environment where fears can be faced and, ultimately, laughed off the next day. In a sense, Halloween has become a cultural ritual that allows society to confront and mock its fears, to celebrate the changing of the seasons, and to acknowledge, even if in a heavily commercialized form, the cycles of life and death. This nuanced perspective of Halloween, where fear is mixed with fun, reflects a mature relationship with the themes of mortality and the supernatural, one that is less about belief in actual spirits and more about understanding and expressing our human condition.
An observation I'll make here for listeners and the AI co-host is that despite what was no doubt a strident attempt by Christianity to tamp out some of the more the life, death, afterlife themes and replace them with a celebration of its saints and martyrs is something that probably did have a profound effect, and we could note about that. But it's really more about the Halloween aspect and what we celebrate today, stemming from all of this history. And I think that we did preserve, as the AI co-host has been noting, and as many people understand too, lots of people celebrate Halloween. I mean, really a lot of people. And there may be an awareness of what that's about in terms of own experience. But, we do to examine this a bit. We go through a sort of celebratory yearly ritual where we dress up and we go out to see people and see how they're dressed up. And a note I'll make here is that it has to do with ghosts and goblins, witches, vampires, and scary stuff, but people do this different ways. You might dress up like a transformer or something like that. You might dress one Halloween, I dressed up as a fried egg. I was sort of copying a book that I read as a kid, and I said, well, I'll just dress up as a fried egg. Nobody else will be that. So there's a desire to be unique and be the most talked about at the party if that's a goal, or merely just to show some creativity if that's something that someone takes pleasure and pride in. And so there's an opportunity for that. People go pretty full on sometimes, but you can also show up and you can be dressed in just something or other too. And this makes it a gathering of people. We are, in a sense, not ourselves on this day. And there are opportunities for candy and so forth that come along with this. So celebrations with other food may happen at certain festivities and so forth. There might be musical performance. I saw on the weekend a musical performance. There were puppets and there were dressed up people playing the music. Freddy Krueger on keys and so forth. So that's fun, and I think that's good. Freddy Krueger is kind of scary. Meanwhile, somebody was sort of dressed up as like in psychedelia as a hippie or something like that, and like cat costumes. So people do it different ways. And this expression I think is maybe an important aspect of Halloween. I don't know. What do you think, AI co-host? Is there something about this that goes beyond the scary roots of Halloween and how it is transformed into something that is about self-expression and some things that you've already hinted at, as a matter of fact, which are cultural goings on where people are celebrating and seeing and being seen and so forth?
Absolutely. The evolution of Halloween into a platform for self-expression and communal celebration is a fascinating aspect of its history and current practice. This transformation signifies more than just a shift away from the original spooky roots. It represents the harnessing of a tradition to fulfill contemporary needs and desires for creativity, community bonding, and even escapism. The range of costumes and ways people choose to celebrate Halloween today, as highlighted by your observations, underscores a broader cultural tapestry. It goes beyond merely acknowledging the dead, supernatural beings, or the change of seasons. Today, Halloween offers a unique space for individuals to explore aspects of identity, creativity, and societal roles in a context that is liberating and playful. The act of dressing up as someone or something else, whether frightening, fanciful, or funny, provides a temporary escape from normalcy, allowing people to experiment with different personas or simply celebrate imaginative expression. This diversification in how Halloween is celebrated, incorporating elements from pop culture, humor, fantasy, and more, reveals an underlying shift towards inclusivity and personal relevance. It allows everyone, regardless of their beliefs about the supernatural or their interest in the festival's Celtic roots, to find a way to participate and express themselves. The spectrum of celebration, from horror-themed decorations to friendly costume parties, reflects the wide-ranging interpretations and meanings that Halloween has acquired. Furthermore, these celebratory practices also play a vital role in community building. Social gatherings, trick-or-treating, parades, and other Halloween events create opportunities for interaction, fostering a sense of togetherness and shared experience. Neighborhoods come alive with activities that encourage cooperation, participation, and engagement, reinforcing social bonds and communal spirit. This evolution into a multifaceted holiday also mirrors broader social and cultural shifts, reflecting society's changing attitudes towards concepts of identity, creativity, and community engagement. The versatility of Halloween as a holiday that can be both spooky and light-hearted, deeply traditional yet openly modern, offers a unique mirror to contemporary society's values and complexities. In sum, Halloween's progression from its scary roots to a day for wide-ranging celebration, creativity, and community indicates that its significance lies not only in its historical origins but also in its current role as a cultural phenomenon that invites participation, fosters self-expression, and nurtures community ties. It has become a day where the veil is lifted, not just between the living and the dead, but between our everyday selves and the myriad possibilities of who we can imagine and manifest ourselves to be, even if just for a night.
So no wonder everybody is attracted to this notion of celebrating Halloween and actually going out and doing it and having a grand old time at these activities. Kids and adults, though they will probably separate differently and in some cases separately unless they're families, will have different approaches, and it can extend through. And it's an extremely culturally popular holiday, and it's something that is probably not equally celebrated in all parts of the world. I recall an experience where I was knowing people who had recently come to Canada, and it was really something new to them in a sense in terms of how full out everybody goes about it. But they loved it and jumped right into it, and it was something that seemed positive for them from what I could tell. I saw a lot of smiles. So that's the good side. But is there, on the other side, an actual dark aspect to Halloween? Now, I'm not talking about the existential grappling with the horrific, which it may help us with, and which does sort of cover or belie dark realities in a sense. But what about where people use Halloween as an excuse to misbehave? What if they don't really think they're misbehaving that badly? And is all of it so bad? Like if somebody gets egged, is that bad? What if that goes against their plans for that day? If someone threw an egg at them. What if someone gets tricked and toilet paper all over their house and it is expensive and they have disabilities which don't allow them to clean it up, and they must come before the community for help at that point? So these are not crimes of the century, I think, that I'm indicating, but it may go on to other things like cultural appropriation. For example, if we do not respect cultures and make them into a costume, this can cut a lot of ways in terms of harming society. And anti-oppressive practices is something that I intend to cover in my next episode. So we'll be looking at that in detail from a certain perspective in the next episode. But what about in this one? For example, I'm being told by cultures that we shouldn't wear their cultural goods and history as regalia for celebration when we are not of that culture. It is considered perhaps a mockery, and it is for this reason the information is out there that people shouldn't do it, and they do it anyway. So it marks disrespect, perhaps, in the minds of some. So. And we also have a history. I seem to recall, I don't really want to pick on the city of Detroit in the States, but I do understand from just memory of being a child and hearing stories about Devil's Eve, the night before Halloween, being a sort of time when arsonists would be very active and burn down a lot of buildings. So let's get I've said a few things here about some of the darker sides of Halloween. But what I'll do now is throw it over to the AI co-host and just get a reaction to all that.
Addressing the darker aspects of Halloween, as highlighted, requires acknowledging and understanding the multifaceted nature of this holiday. While Halloween offers opportunities for creativity, self-expression, and community bonding, it also opens avenues for behaviors and activities that can be harmful or disrespectful. The potential for mischief and malfeasance under the guise of holiday celebration can lead to situations that range from mild pranks to serious criminal activities, impacting individuals and communities. Misbehaviors and pranks. The tradition of a trick-or-treating embodies an element of playful mischief, yet it's crucial to differentiate between harmless fun and actions that inconvenience, harm, or distress others. Vandalism, such as egging or toilet papering someone's property, moves beyond innocent fun, especially when it targets individuals who may be vulnerable or unable to address the aftermath, as in the cases you mentioned. Such actions can impose undue stress and financial strain, transforming a festive occasion into a source of anxiety and hardship. Cultural appropriation. The issue of cultural appropriation during Halloween is significant, reflecting broader societal conversations about respect, understanding, and the shared humanity of diverse cultures. When individuals choose costumes that caricature or misrepresent cultural symbols, traditions, and attire, it can perpetuate stereotypes, foster misunderstandings, and disrespect the very cultures being represented. Encouraging empathy, respect, and informed engagement with the cultures one wishes to emulate in costume form is vital. The celebration of Halloween shouldn't come at the expense of cultural sensitivity and respect. Criminal activities. Regarding more severe issues like arson or vandalism, particularly referencing past occurrences like Detroit's Devil's Night, it's clear that these activities are not intrinsic to the spirit of Halloween but exploit the holiday as a cover for mischief or malevolence. Addressing such behaviors requires community vigilance, education, and, where necessary, law enforcement intervention. Communities like Detroit have worked hard to transform these times of potential turmoil into occasions for community engagement and improvement, showcasing resilience and the desire for positive celebration. Moving forward. To address these darker sides of Halloween, it's crucial for communities to foster a culture of respect, education, and inclusivity, making clear distinctions between celebrating imaginatively and causing harm or offense. Engaging in dialogues about the history and evolution of Halloween, the boundaries of respectful celebration, and the impact of our choices on others can enrich the holiday, making it a more inclusive and considerate celebration for all participants. Educational initiatives, community-led dialogues, and inclusive planning can play significant roles in transforming Halloween into a celebration that respects cultural differences, minimizes harm, and maximizes the positive aspects of creativity, community, and shared joy. By confronting and addressing the darker aspects of Halloween directly and thoughtfully, society can work towards a holiday that truly respects and celebrates the rich tapestry of human culture and creativity.
AI co-host, I wonder if you could go in further and bring this back. I don't mean to be very negative about things, but the cultural appropriation element of Halloween is in particular one that I hope we can grapple with as a human race. And I think that there's a T-shirt which I think is actually hilarious that I've seen some people of color wear, which is a sports team T-shirt called the Caucasians. So it's less funny when reflected. I find it hilarious because I never really considered that practice of calling teams after cultures as really that great. Or, it's not like I was always out protesting about it since being a little kid or something like that. I don't mean to lay claim to that. But it is something that, once beginning to understand, I felt it was quite reasonable that people would be protesting this. And, as such, it is meant to be about the spirit of fun and all this. But maybe we can salvage Halloween by asking the AI co-host to talk about what it suggests in terms of some fun ways to have the things that it suggested: educational initiatives, community-led dialogues, inclusive planning. What types of celebrations can we do with more safety built in? I understand that sometimes people sometimes don't celebrate because of some of the friction that can result when people, depending on your interpretation of this, are misbehaving in this regard or not being accepted for trying to have a little bit of fun. I guess I've hinted at what my thoughts are as far as the appropriation piece. But this can serve to be disruptive, that this element exists, to these celebrations being put on. I wonder what solutions may exist and what dialogues ought to happen so that we can be less a victim of any type of truly dark elements of what may happen on Halloween, as opposed to the fun we're going to have, and we're going to thumb our nose at the horrors that await us beyond our death and so forth. And I wonder if we can sort of do it in a way that is good for the holiday also and good for the celebration, that addresses the issue, but brings it back to something that is in fact more fun, more inclusive, and where everyone can smile.
Fostering a Halloween celebration that respects cultural sensitivities while promoting inclusivity and fun for everyone involves thoughtful planning and community engagement. Here are several strategies and ideas that could nurture a more inclusive Halloween, combining the spirit of the holiday with respect and understanding for all cultures. Educational initiatives. 1. Cultural awareness workshops. Hosting workshops or discussion panels in the lead up to Halloween could be an effective way to educate about cultural appropriation. These could involve cultural representatives who provide insights into their traditions and explain why certain representations could be considered offensive. 2. Costume guides. Schools, workplaces, and community centers can distribute guides on choosing costumes thoughtfully, emphasizing creativity without appropriation. These guides can include examples of imaginative costumes that don't rely on stereotypes. Community-led dialogues. 1. Open forums, creating spaces where people can express their concerns, ask questions, and share ideas about celebrating Halloween responsibly could lead to greater empathy and understanding within the community. These forums could be in person or online, allowing broad participation. 2. Storytelling events, events where individuals from various backgrounds share their personal experiences and histories could illuminate the significance of certain cultural symbols and attire, fostering a deeper respect for diverse traditions. Inclusive planning. 1. Theme-based parties. Encourage parties and gatherings around themes that don't center on cultural stereotypes. Examples could include ecological themes, space exploration, literary characters, or historical periods defined by their innovation or artistry rather than by a specific culture. 2. Community parades and events. Organize Halloween parades or events with themes that celebrate the imaginative and creative aspects of Halloween, such as fantasy, science fiction, or non-specific spooky themes, which invite participation from all cultural backgrounds without appropriation. 3. Inclusive costume contests. Hold costume contests that specifically reward creativity, humor, and originality without relying on cultural caricatures. Categories could include Best Homemade Costume, Most Original Concept, or Best Group Theme. Safety measures. 1. Safety patrols. Ensure there's a presence of community volunteers during trick-or-treat hours to keep an eye out for safety and help address any concerns that may arise, promoting a safe experience for all participants. 2. Allergy-friendly treat options. Promote inclusivity by encouraging the provision of treats that cater to a variety of dietary restrictions and allergies, making the holiday enjoyable for more children. By embracing these strategies, communities can celebrate Halloween in a way that's fun, inclusive, and respectful. Opening up dialogues about cultural appropriation and educating on sensitive representation can pave the way for a Halloween where creativity flourishes without causing harm or offense. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure Halloween remains a time for joyous and imaginative expression where everyone can partake in the spirit of the holiday with a smile.
And I tried to make that fun. I don't know if that's the most fun list that all listeners have ever heard in their lives, but, maybe it's to get at the fun. There's something important about being inclusive in terms of how we enjoy things and how we welcome people to this, I think. And maybe the Halloween example is a good example to talk about this. I did promise you education this episode and, in fact, sort of threaten you with it. So, when it comes to let's say, what would be a better society than the one we have now, we could imagine that things could get better if we changed the right things. So it's that we would have to put effort into being inclusive. I personally don't find such efforts a bore. I find them educational, and I find it engaging to be understanding just what the limits are with people and why it is that it's more respectful to act in another way. And my feeling is that I will get more genuinely to friendships if I actually pursue that activity in a responsible and honest manner. And if I go through the Halloween exercise of giving, perhaps, unfortunately, people might have to read a pamphlet or something like that. But in going through that process, in creating that material, or in setting the stage for not just what the organizers think is a good Halloween, but the creativity that a broadly diverse group of people coming together might bring to costume design, or to how they may express themselves on the holiday when their exposure is new, or if it's something that they've done for years, but just happen to be of a background that is mocked by the holiday sometimes. And, to have that more fun at our celebrations may reflect on something that could be considered an important lesson for how we do our General Congress. And, what I really want as I close the episode here is for people to just have a fun and of primal importance, also a safe Halloween, and make it safe for others. Don't be mocking others. This is not kind activity. I guess that's one thing that I really wanted to say about Halloween, other than to just explain it from a historical perspective, where I'm learning myself, and something that I'll point out to listeners. Long-time listeners may know this, but I sit down sometimes the morning of the podcast being published, and I explore a topic with the AI, get its impressions, and then try to provide my own insights, which propel the conversation forward, making decisions as to what to discuss and so forth. So we've gotten into a history of Halloween, some of the reasons why people find it's important, and that's very important to talk about, what is so great about something, and then just some cautions to go with it, because we want safety for the children, first of all, I think, and why not the grown-ups too? And why shouldn't everybody have fun at a time of celebration? So with these sentiments, I'm Sean McNutt, and this has been A Guy with AI.
As we bring this episode to a close, it's clear that the essence of Halloween, and indeed any celebration, is profoundly enhanced by our efforts towards inclusivity, understanding, and mutual respect. Engaging with these themes not only enriches the holiday for everyone involved but also serves as a valuable lesson in how we conduct ourselves more broadly within society. By embracing diverse ways of celebrating, we open the door to a richer, more vibrant community experience, where safety and fun are paramount, and everyone is welcome to partake in the festivities. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this reflective journey through the nuances of Halloween and the broader implications of inclusivity in our celebrations. Your time and engagement with A Guy with AI are greatly appreciated. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing, and be sure to tune into future episodes. For more information and to access all our episodes across various platforms, make aguyWithAI.world your portal to podcast platforms and YouTube. We also invite you to join the conversation on Facebook through the link provided on that webpage. Your thoughts, experiences, and perspectives enrich our discussions and help shape a more inclusive and engaging dialogue for all our listeners. Here's to a fun, safe Halloween and to many more enlightening conversations ahead. Until next time, stay curious, and keep exploring the world with an open heart and mind.